behavioral finance solutions.
Welcome to Bloomberg On Demand, the business of life. I'm Carol Biaggi. Many people make irrational decisions when it comes to saving and investing money. That's one reason why so many Americans are financially unprepared for retirement. The field of behavioral finance, part psychology, part economics, is shedding light on how hardwired emotions drive people to make predictable mistakes. Here's a look at the forces behind those mistakes and some solutions to deal with them.
Many scientists have shown that people are systematically making these mistakes, like not saving adequately for retirement. And we now have descriptions of how people are making bad decisions, which is what behavioral finance is showing us.
There's now a lot of evidence suggesting there are actually reward centers in the brain that you see in imaging studies that light up more for rewards that can be gotten now as opposed to later. Early in evolutionary times, we had to eat now to survive. So we're wired, if you will, for immediate rewards. So rules that developed so we could eat as soon as we killed food don't really work when we're trying to save for retirement.
Psychiatrist Richard Peterson is the author of Inside the Investor's Brain.
Our ancestors didn't have a life expectancy beyond 40, and they never really saved anything beyond about a year. So how could we have evolved to plan 20 years into the future, or even to see ourselves 20 years into the future, without some kind of intervention by someone else to help us?
NYU Stern School professor Hal Hirschfield came up with an intervention method to help people overcome present bias and save more. A virtual time machine that uses age progression software to let people see themselves 20, 30, or 40 years in the future. It's based on something called the Proteus Effect.
The Proteus Effect is the idea that when people interact with avatars, that is, digital representations of people, they actually end up taking on some of the characteristics of those avatars. So if we look at ourselves as an older person, as an aged person, we take on some more of those feelings of being aged. What we saw again and again in these studies is that when people were exposed to their future selves, they would allocate significantly more money or more of their paycheck to these long-term saving funds.
Another reason people fail to save enough money is simple inertia. It's easier to do nothing than something. Behavioral finance experts call it status quo bias.
The status quo bias or inertia is extremely powerful. Most of our financial decisions, unfortunately, are actually lack of decisions.
Shlomo Bonarzi is a professor at UCLA's Anderson School of Management. He's also chief behavioral economist at Allianz Global Investors Center for Behavioral Finance.
People tend to be very lazy, they stick to the status quo, they're afraid of making changes. The idea of joining a new company and filling up all sorts of paperwork to start saving for retirement is kind of difficult for most people.
There's been a lot of financial innovation recently targeted at helping individuals overcome behavioral biases. So in employer-sponsored savings plans, automatic enrollment is an approach that's being used to overcome status quo bias.
Professor Bridget Madrian teaches at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. She studies the relationship between 401k plan design and how much employees save.
One outcome that you observe is that when individuals face complicated decisions, they'll just decide not to do anything. They'll procrastinate, they'll delay. In many companies, historically, the default was you were not in the plan unless you actively choose to sign up.
Now you can just switch that. The day you become eligible, you get a big pile of forms, and if you don't fill them out, you're in.
Richard Thaler is one of the founding fathers of behavioral finance. He says another part of our internal wiring is what academics call loss aversion.
It refers to the fact that losses hurt about twice as much as gains feel good. That can be paralyzing.
Larry Bird, the great basketball player, once said, "Losing hurts more than winning feels good." And that's loss aversion in a nutshell.
If I am weighting losses twice as heavily as gains, and I'm thinking about a stock investment, well, every time the stock market goes down 2%, it feels like a 4% decline. And every time it goes up 2%, it feels only like a 2% increase. And if every downturn feels twice as bad as every upturn, the last thing I want to do is hold equities. Unfortunately, that drives people out of a very important asset class.
How stock market investors react to losses plays out in what Harvard economist David Lapson calls the disposition effect.
The disposition effect is the idea that people tend to hold on to their losing stocks. And I think the reason that they do that is that they feel that they still have hope.
If they sell it, they have to declare the loss to themselves.
And I don't fully have to accept the reality of the loss until I sell the security. So if a stock is down, I'm going to hold on to it because I've got this chance, I'll redeem myself.
You can look back at a portfolio that suffers from this, and you'll see position after position after position that have sunk to the bottom because nobody could bring themselves emotionally to get rid of them. Loss aversion is the central driver of behavior. It would be nice if it wasn't when it comes to investing, but it is, and we have to recognize it and plan around it.
The way it plays out with retirement savings is that people oftentimes think about contributing to their retirement account as a loss to their paycheck now.
Planning around loss aversion is the crux of a popular program called Save More Tomorrow that allows people to avoid feeling pain when they save money.
Shlomo Benartzi and I have devised something we call Save More Tomorrow.
People don't like to save and see their take-home amount go down. So we actually program it that they save more every time they make more money.
You give people the option to commit themselves now to saving more later. So if you get a 4% pay increase, maybe you increase your saving by 2%. And that way, people never see their paychecks shrink.
The first case study we've done, people quadrupled their saving rates from 3.5% to almost 14% over 3.5 years.
2011 survey by the Plan Sponsor Council of America found 40% of U.S. employers have some form of automatic enrollment, and 55% of those offer an auto-escalation feature like Save More Tomorrow.
Behavioral finance experts say the overarching goal is helping people help themselves. The way to do that is by creating systems that allow them to make better choices through what academics call choice architecture.
Let's create environments that are as easy as possible for humans to make good decisions. Ultimate responsibility for saving for retirement is obviously rests with the individual. But the choice architects, the HR people at firms and people at the government, they also have important roles to make it easy for unsophisticated humans to make good choices.
Thaler's book, Nudge, written with Cass Sunstein, lays out a vision of gently nudging people to make good choices. It's a way for individuals to overcome their biases without giving up their freedom of choice.
By creating good default options that people are free to turn down, that's the simplest way of achieving that goal.
For more information about savings plans, go to the websites of the Employee Benefits Security Administration and Retirement Made Simpler.
Thanks for watching Bloomberg On Demand, the business of life. I'm Carol Biaggi.